welcome. As you guys know, over the last several weeks, we've been doing a lot of preparation and talking about the coronavirus or COVID-19. And even though there's been a lot of great preparation and resources put out there, one thing that struck me and what prompted this conversation is that I think it's affecting a lot of us in different ways. I know for me personally, feeling stressed, watching the news, dealing with the pressure of supporting site staff, hearing from residents. And so I wanted to have a conversation about how we can take care of ourselves in the midst of this. And so very thankful to Dr. Kerry, Makin-Byrd, who's a psychologist, for joining me today and just kind of talking through some of that with us. What can we do to support ourselves? So I guess if you want to just introduce yourself and a little bit about yourself
definitely.
And how you feel about this or why it's important to talk about.
Yeah. So I'm Dr. Kerry Makin-Byrd. I'm a psychologist. I have a lot of expertise in supporting people when they're facing overwhelming events. So that can be trauma, it can be life or death, it can be disease, pandemic, it can be just the normal everyday things that because of a variety of either our genetic wiring or what has happened to us in the past suddenly feel overwhelming. So that's what I do. That's what I love. I feel like I'm really grateful to do something that I love every day, and am very happy to answer questions about the way that uncertainty, especially right now, is impacting all of us.
What are some of the things that you see as in how this stress exhibits in these types of situations for people?
Yeah. What I have noticed personally and professionally is that, like any time when there's a time of uncertainty, what we notice is we just feel a little more on edge. We notice that the base kind of emotion of fear or anxiety is a little ratcheted up. We may have a little trouble sleeping. Probably someone's noticing that they're eating more Cheetos than they usually do, or feel like they want another beer. There's a feeling of kind of like little edginess. There's the other ways that people can experience that are feeling like it's harder to be focused or have a clear mind. They notice their thoughts being pretty scattered, and might notice being a little more quick to have a big emotion, whether that be, for some people they're faster to snap, for some people they're faster to cry, for some people they're faster to just kind of shut off entirely and want to numb out a little bit. And that can just be, definitely in this age of uncertainty, I am watching more Netflix than I used to.
Sure.
Because it's nice to, not be looking at the CNN screen all the time.
Yeah. I turned on the news for 10 minutes on Monday and it was overwhelming starting my day. And I actually turned it off because of how I started to feel. Well, what advice do you have for someone who is feeling overwhelmed, or maybe not even sure how we're feeling in the midst of this?
Yeah. I think one of the very best things any of us can do when we're in a place of uncertainty is you get super clear about what is the one thing you can control, which is your own behavior. That is literally the only thing you can control, and especially in this present moment. So our brain is well evolved to scan the past for what we could learn and scan the future for what we should protect ourselves against or defend against. That serves us very well, especially sometimes. It serves us very well when we're in the jungle and we're looking for tigers and snakes, right? It does not serve us well when there is a constant 24-hour news stream of threat, and only a very small percentage of us has any potential to impact us. So, for example, this morning, I now know the mortality rate of coronavirus in Italy. How is that directly relevant to my next 5 minutes, right? I definitely have a physiological response to that.
Sure.
So in terms to briefly answer your question, the way that we kind of take care of ourselves is we think about how do we impact our behavior, and then also what can we do in the next 5 minutes. So I think sometimes it's very helpful to, when you notice that your mind is kind of spinning or you feel kind of overwhelmed, it's, what am I going to do right now? I'm going to wash my hands, and then I'm going to respond to an email. I'm going to look at my child who is playing with our dog. And I'm just going to be in this moment, and that, not to hide, but to do the one thing that you can do right now.
Okay, that's great. So let's talk about helping the helper. Most of our team members in some capacity are helping people, right? We've got people on our staff, we have residents we represent, and sometimes that I think we get lost in that.
Yeah.
And so how do we, as people who are in a position to help or support, what would you provide advice on related to that?
Yeah. So I always say, for people who do mission-driven work, for people who get so much energy from serving other people and helping other people, it is even more important that those people who are giving a ton are also making sure to recharge themselves. So my mantra always is, and you know, the only reason I know this so well is because I have failed at it for many aspects of my life and relearned it until I learned it. I've been doing trauma and grief work for a decade and a half, and there is no way to continue to do work you love and mission-driven work if you're not also inhaling, because to make it sustaining. So my mantra always is, you must inhale to exhale. And the irony is, in these times where it feels like, but there's no time, I must be putting all my effort out. I mean, the metaphor I use a lot is, if your phone is running really highly intensive apps, that's not when you plug it in less, right? Because thank goodness our phones have a very clear signal of, oh, we're at 2% battery, right?
Right.
But probably we could come up with a list of what are all the ways your body and your mind is telling you you're at low battery. Right. And sometimes we just ignore. So very concretely, in terms of how in the world can you be inhaling to exhale, I will say this 1,000 times, treat yourself how you would your very favorite pet. You need walks, you need fresh air, you need lots of water, you need good food, and you need, maybe we don't do this with dogs as much, but you need a lot of social connection. So, I mean, very concretely, if you take nothing else from this video, the important thing would be, make sure you're drinking water. Yeah. Make sure that you are walking out into the fresh air, or at least, I mean, fascinatingly, there's good science that even looking out a window for a few minutes impacts your physiology. So if that's all you can do, look out a window for a few minutes, right? Call a friend on the way home and just talk about your day. Like, so we, again, evolution, none of us evolved to be isolated beings. Yeah. There is no way we could have taken down a woolly mammoth as, 150-pound little, like, puny human. The reason we evolved and succeeded is because we worked together. So let's keep doing that.
Good. Excellent. One of the things that comes up a lot, I think, and sometimes there's a stigma around it, sometimes there's not, but it's talking to a professional. And so I'd like to hear your thoughts on, how do you know when it's time to do that? Our staff, we have access to the Employee Assistance Program, and you can get free access to a counselor through that. A lot of our staff are students, and you can go to your university counseling center. But what are some of the triggers or things people should consider when it comes to deciding to do that outreach?
Yeah. My suggestion is looking for signs that it's impacting your work consistently, especially for more than a week or two, impacting relationships, either at work or at home. If you notice that, wait a second, there are ripples happening in the other areas of my life, and especially if you feel a little stuck or lost about, I don't know how to bring this back on track, that's what I would say for just a consult. It can be as simple as, in addition to EAP programs, the vast majority of therapists and professionals, at least within the Denver and kind of Colorado area, offer free consultations. So you can talk to someone for 15 minutes on the phone and just say, this is what's happening. And there are times where I will say to someone, I think this is super normal. And if you don't isolate yourself, if you keep talking to people, and if you let the emotions happen without judging yourself and saying, I can't believe I'm feeling that way, this is going to naturally progress. I mean, humans are resilient, and humans tend towards health. They just do. But if you have a 15-minute free phone call with somebody, they can also say to you, hey, why don't we talk once or twice and see if there's ways I can be helpful.
How about referring others or supporting others? So let's say we've got someone who is on our staff, or maybe it's a resident, and you're really concerned. Like, you're seeing some of those signs of impact. How do we have that conversation to support them and potentially make that referral?
Yeah. I think there's 3 critical pieces. One is, this is not going to be a shock, you've heard me say it already, social connection. So just listening, just being a listening ear. There is a strong narrative in our culture that I describe as the Pollyanna narrative of, let's look on the bright side. I would be, if you are someone who is listening and asking how someone's feeling, it is a very natural pull to want to offer a kind of realistic counterpoint or have them look on the bright side. And there's also good data that can really shut down a conversation. So the more you can be able to listen and just say, it either empathize or validate, it's super normal. You are definitely not the only person who's concerned about this. I think a lot of people are really concerned, for example. And then also say, I think a light touch can be helpful of saying, have you ever thought about talking to somebody? What do you think about therapy? Do you think that would be helpful? Do you think it's craziness?
Right. And I would say know what your options are. So I think if you're talking to a student, make a call to the counseling center on campus so that you know, like, oh, we do a free consult, or you can get a free visit, or we're 2 weeks out, but we have walk-in hours for emergencies. So make sure that we're researching that, and we'll get information to everyone about EAP so that you can make that call if you want to. Let's see what other questions I had. Really, that was the gist of the main ones that I had, but is there any other advice or insights for folks as they're in the midst of what is a stressful and in some ways uncharted time?
The only other one I would say that I haven't said already is a media diet and a social media diet would not hurt anyone. I mean, literally in the last month, there have been 2 additional studies that have just come out that reduced Facebook time is associated with more time available to do quality and enriching activities. So you notice my language around that. It's not just turn off Facebook, suddenly you're happier. No.
Right.
If you par down on Facebook, or CNN or Fox News or Washington Post or whatever, if you are maybe a little more thoughtful now about spending even 20 minutes a day doing something other than looking at a screen, that can be really helpful. You can do all those other things.
Excellent. Good. Well, I really appreciate it.
Of course, I'm happy.
I think these are great insights, and I would just share to our team, know that in addition to this, like, we want you to take care of yourselves. Talk to your supervisor, talk to EAP. Let us know how you're doing and what we can do to support you. We're in this together, and we're going to get through this together, and we want you to take care of yourselves. You've heard me say it all the time that our purpose is to serve and inspire our employees and residents to achieve their full potential, and this is a part of that, is self-care, and we want to make sure that you're doing well, and we just thank you for all that you're doing as we go through this, and thank you so much, Dr. Kerry.
Absolutely.